Good afternoon, guys. It's Mandy from Exposed Scotland. Right, pains me to do this video, guys, but I need to raise awareness about there's a hidden pandemic in Scotland for anybody that doesn't know. Right, the abuse and the trafficking and the exploitation of our young boys and vulnerable young men in this country is sickening, right? So I'm just want to raise a bit of awareness about that, guys. You need to start waking up, right? See, Scotland, it's not a safe place for your kids. I'm going to tell you some stuff, right, so that you can get the idea where I'm coming from. So young boys in Scotland are being exploited, groomed into exploitation in the care homes in Scotland, right? Made prostitutes. This isn't just something new, right? So research, look up Operation Planet, right? The Edinburgh Rent Boy scandal. So that was vulnerable young males in Edinburgh, right, were getting groomed for the benefit of politicians, judges, lawyers, etc. in care homes, right? So they were getting groomed to be put into exploitation, right? So they were being groomed by the care home staff. And then they were being exploited, then they were being gave into the hands of these politicians, right, to rape. This whole situation blew up when there was a young boy in Edinburgh kidnapped, right, and he was held hostage for 10 days and gang raped in a flat in Edinburgh. So massive trigger warning, guys, right, because this is sickening. So if you don't want to hear any of this, then switch off right now. So in Edinburgh, this young boy was tied up, gagged and held in a flat in Edinburgh by politicians, judges, lawyers, etc. the likes, right? And they was gang raped for a period of 10 days. The young boy managed to escape and ran in naked and drugged and ran naked into the street. Right, so all these young boys get drugged, right? So during lockdown there was a massive unchecked pandemic, right? And that was young boys looking for somewhere to go. Young boys looking for somewhere to have a party because they weren't allowed to hang about with each other. They weren't allowed to go anywhere. So that made them fall victim to exploitation, right? Because the hussies they did find to go in, they were gave drugs and drink and drug debts, etc. And then they were told that they owed these people money, right? So what chance have they got? Right? So then when we all started back up, these young boys are having to run drugs for these weirdos, right? Who probably, in a lot of the cases, the young boys have been drugged at some point in one of these gas and hoof parties and raped half a bunch of fucking men, right? And it been videoed and them being blackmailed, right? So that's just one incident, right? I need you to pay attention. If you've got young boys in this country, if you've got a vulnerable young adult, then Scotland's not a safe place right now. There's a hidden pandemic that they're all covering up and nobody's talking about. So that's just one incident, the Edinburgh Rent Boy scandal, Operation Planet. It's been reopened, look it up. So then there's also, we've got a book here, right, guy? So we've got a part-time sheriff, he's part-time, John Halley's an advocate and a part-time sheriff. So that's John Halley. He's written a book about a juridical monster and child abuse cover-up in this country, right? So he's talking about Holly Gregg, right? Holly Gregg was another incident, a total cover-up, where there was satanic rituals, that wee lassie was raped off judges, teachers, social workers, politicians in Aberdeen, right, in Scotland. And she had Down syndrome, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. Her mum and Holly they've never got justice, have been ran out of this country because they opened their mouth, right? So that's what happens in this country. So John Halley, this part-time sheriff here, he's got a background in youths, right, and advocating for them, etc, etc. And he became aware of the problem in the care homes and tried to expose it. So he produced evidence to the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry, right, about young boys being groomed in care homes and then sent out to groomers and traffickers and gave drugs and get into debt and then have to sexually exploit themselves, so become prostitutes, right? And that's in Scotland and our care homes, right? Now these young boys need to have sex with men to pay off their debts. These men take videos and shit of them, they get taken to hussies, they get drugged, they get gang raped. They've got videos circulating the internet and the dark web, right? That's out there forever, right? The difference of being abused in this day and age and then being abused years ago is the abuse never ends, right? Because there's video footage of these children all over the internet somewhere for these sick fuckers, excuse my language, right, to look at, right? So the abuse continues for many years because the video footage is circling worldwide. So we have that, right? Like I said, the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry where gave evidence of Wayne's been made prostitutes for the care homes, groomed in there to be prostituted out and sold for sex. For the very places that are meant to take care of these children, the groomers sitting in there waiting to spot the vulnerable children and groom them for the paedophiles and then sell them to the paedophiles, right? That's your care homes in Scotland, these places that are meant to be safe for these traumatised children, right? No, the Waynes get then punished even more for opening their mouth in the first place when they go to a care home. That's what happens to them in Scotland, right? So you paying attention yet? So then that's the reason for this video, as I picked up this morning. Well, I picked it up yesterday because I seen something in it I wanted to read, but I didn't have any idea I was going to find this. Now, why is this no front page news in Scotland? Just tell me that. If sexual exploitation and gang rape of young males and made into prostitutes for these sick fuckers, for these police, for these social workers, for these judges, for these lawyers, right? Then why is it being hidden? Why is it no front page news? So I'm going to read you a story that's in the Digger, right? A Christmas horror story is the headlines. Coatbridge chicken danger, right? So alarm, guys, right? If you stay in these areas and you have any vulnerable males that stay in these areas, then please listen to me. Serious organised criminals from the Coatbridge and Chapel Hall areas are targeting vulnerable single men to make extremely violent pornographic movies including rape and coerced suicide. Right, so they're coercing these young boys to snuff movies, to commit suicide on video. Victims are targeted by, listen, this is scary and sickening, right guys? You just need to wake up. Victims are targeted by people in their social circle who nominate them for abuse known as chigging, right? So like I said, all these young boys have been groomed in that, right? And they've all got drug habits and this is their life and they get sexually exploited and videos made, but they think these people love them, right? And these people are their pals and they're cool cunts, right? Some of these young boys, some of them are just terrified and can't get out of it now. So then they find other vulnerable young males in their circle, right? And it's called chit, so they then tell them who they are, right? So victims will suffer attempts to isolate them by deliberate attempts to sabotage their work, their close relationships. Once the victims become isolated and jobless, the abuse begins. The criminals will begin pouring large quantities of bedbugs and hay mites, chiggers, through the victim's letterbox during the night. Over a period of weeks, the bedbugs begin to lay eggs around the victim's sleeping area. When they hatch, they produce small nymphs, which each produce a bee sting-like effect when feeding. The massive number of bedbugs biting the victim as they sleep leads to a state of anaphylaxis, a serious condition which could be fatal. And once in this state, the criminals begin entering the victim's home to physically abuse them with weapons and tools. The abuse is live streamed on the dark web, hardcore sites, where other perverts can pay to direct the abuse. After each session, the victim will be returned to their bed, where the tiny insects will be feeding, putting them into deep numbing sleep and inducing further anaphylaxis. The abuse continues until the victims either die in their sleep or commit coerced suicide. The suicide footage is very lucrative on the hardcore sites. The gang have been targeting victims for a number of years. This is one of the reasons the suicide rates in North Lanarkshire are so high in comparison to the national average. Are you listening? Did you hear all that there? Right? Did you hear what these grooming gangs, these paedophile gangs, these paedophile rings and sex attackers gangs in Scotland are doing? That's real. That's happening. That's been happening for years. They're breaking down your vulnerable young males that stay with their mums and their single mothers or single fathers, right? This is the shit they're doing to them. Then there's you heard that there? Do you want me to read it one more time before I go? After each session, the victim will be returned to their bed, where the tiny insects will be feeding, putting them into a deep numbing sleep and inducing further anaphylaxis. The abuse continues until the victims either die in their sleep or they commit suicide. The suicide footage is very lucrative in the hardcore sites. The gang have been targeting victims for a number of years.